94 Rocks The Dark. It is that time again. It's time to get to know a band we play here on The Dark. And on the phone tonight, I have Rex Cox. He is the lead singer from the band Uncured. They're out of New Jersey. And we've had him on the Rock of the Dark New Music Poll. They're currently spinning here on The Dark. Wanted to find a little bit more about this band. So, Rex, first of all, thanks so much for joining me. How you doing tonight?
Jay-Z, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing fantastic and very excited to be playing on the program.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at back in our library here, and of course, your latest song, Let's Break Out, currently spinning here. But I noticed we did have a song last year that we had called Living Like I'm Dead. So it's not like we've never heard about Uncured, but I guess I'm curious about how this band all came about. Can you give us the nuts and bolts on it?
Yeah, of course. And, first let me say I'm happy to hear that Living Like I'm Dead was playing on the station. I actually didn't know that. So that's pretty cool to hear. So my brother and I are in the band together, and we were the founding members. So we've been touring professionally for over 5 years. And, since we are relatively young, we actually had to drop out of high school to do that. So I dropped out of high school after 9th grade, and my brother dropped out after 11th grade because we had an opportunity to go on tour with a band called Catatonia.
Yes.
And we've just been touring ever since. So, we're very thankful that this is what we get to do. And, always looking forward to progressing and just constantly playing more shows. It's all we care about.
I'm kind of curious, a couple questions there on that. First of all, your parents. What were your parents, I guess, thinking about when you dropped out? Were they supportive of this?
Absolutely. So my dad had owned a studio in New York for a while, a period of time, and I grew up, working there. Over the course of years, working there, I've just learned so many things about studio and production, engineering, to the point where I'm actually doing the production and engineering on the Uncured record. So Let's Break Out. That's Rex at the driver's seat as far as engineering and production goes as well. But it's not like that's something that comes quickly. So since I've been around it for years and years at this point, it's been a slow burn of accumulating that skill set. Also with singing and guitar, just trying to build all three of those skill sets simultaneously.
And you also mentioned Catatonia, which we do spin them. Atrium is their latest song here on 94 Rocks. So give us a little bit about that. How did you get hooked up with them, I guess?
At this point, I actually don't remember. But
hey, you're a rock star, so you probably don't remember a lot of things, right?
I have a pretty bad memory. Yes, everybody that I know and that knows me is pretty aware of that fact. But I don't totally remember. I know that on our very first EP, it was at that point it was just my brother and I, and Max Portnoy played drums on that EP, so we got a lot of attention early on.
Yeah.
And Max has never toured with us or anything because he's in other projects. But we got like a little bit of a kickstart of attention, and then quickly found the drummer we were working with at that time, and went on that tour shortly after releasing our very first EP, which by the way was all instrumental because I had just turned, I think I was 16 or 17.
Yeah, so you guys are pretty young. You're young. You're what? You're 23, 24 right now?
I'm 22.
Oh, well, geez. I aged you, I guess.
Well, yeah, I have the soul of like a 50-year-old. But no, actually, once again, I'm getting a little bit mixed up on the dates because usually my brother is the guy who has like the super specific memory, and I'm more of a big picture guy, so I don't usually take these questions.
That's okay.
But
no worries.
Yeah, I believe that we had just put out our first full-length record at that time, and that was only with screaming vocals. So we were playing kind of instrumental songs and songs with only screaming. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't until I kind of got a little bit older, started really realizing that singing was my true passion, and guitar is just a way to facilitate songwriting, and then obviously lay a foundation for chords and everything like that, so that the song can really. It can be about the songwriting and not just about the shredding or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. You said, well, I'm getting a little bit older and you're 22. Yeah. You're the guy I'm worried about right now because I have 3 teenage daughters that are almost 19. So instead of a rock guy, I'm like, okay, wait a minute now. Where you been? What you doing? Let me ask you that, being young in that, is it Is it a curse? Is it a blessing? How do you go about it, especially when you started so young and dropped out of school to do this?
Oh, I'm very thankful that I started when I did, and I'll tell you why. Most people my age are either in their last year of college or graduating college, this coming year.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them are just now finishing up their fun times, right? Like end of high school, college, that's like more fun. That's kind of when, kids are figuring out what they want to do with all that kind of stuff. And as soon as that time period stops, they're going to be in for a rude awakening, or most of them are, that, they're going to have to kind of go through that grinding phase for, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And I do feel as if since I started at 16 and I'm 22 now, I'm almost through that initial grinding phase. It's almost like I've gotten the hardest years out of the way when I was younger. So they always say that youth is wasted on the young. But in this instance, I don't feel like it has been because, I've been working on this business ever since, I was, 16. So I do feel as if I've gotten the hardest developmental years out of the way at a time when it made more sense to do so.
So if I do the math, Rex, here, you're probably born in 2000. Am I right on that?
That's correct.
Okay,
yeah.
So basically your library of music probably started when you were maybe 4 or 5. Now, obviously your parents are there, so they're kind of more my age. They go back in music and whatnot. But I guess what's your influences in it? Has it always been on the heavy metal, the rock side, because it was there?
I grew up listening to a pretty wide variety of things because my dad would listen to a very wide variety of things, and when you're a kid, that's all you're really exposed to.
Yeah.
I guess it's different. It's different now because you see kids that are like 8, 9, and 10 with iPads and phones, which is very odd to me. You should be playing outside when you're that young. That's what I think. So yeah, I grew up just listening to basically whatever was in the environment. So it was things like the band America, but then also like Opeth and Mastodon. So it was a pretty wide variety of things. I didn't totally understand the heavier genre when I was younger, but I sort of grew into understanding it, and I think since it was a bit more of an acquired taste, I appreciated it more and more because there was so much to unpack, whereas a band like America, there was not nearly as much to dive into, compared to like Opeth, for example.
Right, exactly. We're talking to Rex Cox. He's the lead singer of the band Uncured, and their latest song is called Let's Break Out. I did do some research recently. It's in the top 50 on the Mediabase Activator chart, so that's cool. I know it's on the secondary market charts in the top 40 this week. And I also did some research, and I don't know if you even know this, but I believe we might have been technically the first radio station in America to play your song. Just to let you know, we did get it out there before I think everybody else.
Oh, that's awesome. So, yeah, that's why you got to listen to the dark so you can be the first to hear these things.
Absolutely. Talk about this song a little bit and what it means. What's the meaning behind it?
Let's Break Out is this is a pretty straightforward message where it's just about moving on and moving past anything that's kind of holding you back. And I think that this is the first. This song makes sense to be releasing first on this upcoming EP because this is definitely the most lighthearted song. Everything else is kind of much darker and I think much deeper. But I like releasing this one first because Let's Break Out is kind of, also about rebirth. And, the album cover is the golden egg, which is also about rebirth moving forward. So I think that this is setting a stage for everything that's to come. And, at the same time, it's definitely an earworm. I don't think anybody can deny that because it starts with the hook, which is the chorus.
Yep.
And, cycles back to it. And, I'll actually notice, like, just people that I know that have heard the song, they'll be humming it and not even realizing that they're singing, one of our songs, but just like,
right.
It gets stuck in people's heads.
Yeah. What's that like, I guess? What's it like to have somebody singing back your song or, for that matter, hearing it on the radio?
To play a show and have people singing the words with me is probably the most rewarding feeling ever. Like, I can't really liken it to anything else. And, I think what's really cool, too, is as we're, over the course of this, I've been seeing it more and more. as we've been getting slightly more well known and more traction. So it's such an incredibly rewarding feeling, and I feel pretty confident that with all of the radio play and stuff like that going forward, that's just going to continue to compound on itself.
Right.
And like I said, there's really there's no feeling to compare that to. It's kind of unmatched.
Absolutely. The album currently now, is it out or is it going to be released? Or I guess I haven't looked at that too much because I just get signals every time. So
we only have that one song released currently.
Okay.
But we're going to be putting out one or two more singles before the full album comes out. And the date scheduled for the album release right now is June 2nd. But there is talk of pushing that back depending on how things play out on radio. Okay,
I gotcha. And do you have the album named and everything too?
Yeah. So actually, if you look on Apple Music or iTunes, you can see, maybe even Spotify. No, not on Spotify yet. But on Apple Music and iTunes, you can see the full track listing. So
nice.
On the digital copy, there's 6 songs, and on the physical copy, we actually have 7 songs. So you might notice that the last one is titled "One Step Closer," which is a cover of one of the most iconic rock songs of all time. So that one was so much fun to work on, and to get to cover a Linkin Park song. Obviously you're covering Chester's vocals, so you got to make sure you're on point for that.
Yeah. Hey, you mentioned that, and they just put out a track off of an album, I think it's 20th anniversary of Meteora, and Lost is that song that came out. It was already put together, already composed, so they really didn't have to do anything with it. What do you think of that? That's awesome, first of all, isn't it?
I listened to that song as soon as it came out, and I thought it was awesome, like fantastic. I really loved hearing it, and it was kind of surreal too, because I've listened to so much of the old Linkin Park stuff too, and this is coming straight from that time period, which is something that I never thought we would really hear again, or at least something new we would hear again from them. So it was pretty awesome to hear that, and I'm glad that everybody's giving it such a warm reception.
I'm sure you were standing in line when you were about 2 to get that album, weren't you?
I don't even know if you can stand when you're 2. Can you?
Oh yeah, you can stand. I hope you were standing. So I actually, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. I remember exactly. I went and bought that album. I was up in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, and I went to the Target store there and bought that album. Just when we were talking about that, I had a flashback. I was like, oh yeah, that's where that album I bought. So
Target store in Minnesota, you said?
Yeah. Crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So awesome.
Yeah, I do think there is something about having a physical copy of an album or a record that makes you appreciate it more, even if you are just going to be streaming it on Spotify. So what is pretty cool to see is every time we have vinyl, they sell out. Every time we have physical CDs, they still sell out, even though people aren't necessarily listening to the music through those mediums. But I think it's not even like a collector's thing. It's more of just a physical representation of your appreciation of that music. So while a lot of people say that record sales or rather physical media sales are going to go extinct, that's definitely not true in the live touring markets. So I think that even young people appreciate having like a physical copy of something that they stream digitally.
Very well said, Rex. And obviously you're in the young generation, so hopefully there's more like you out there. You did say you're an old soul, but hopefully there are more people out there that are exactly like that, because still having the physical copy, I think it just means something. Yeah,
absolutely. I think for something to really have, it's hard to capture somebody's attention in the digital age, but if somebody has a physical copy or they see you like in person live, basically anything that kind of makes an experience more real and authentic and less digitally driven, I think is a huge part of connecting, fans to bands.
Yeah.
And then also connecting bands to larger audiences.
I totally agree. And you know what? I would have never, if I would have downloaded the Linkin Park album, I wouldn't remember when I downloaded it, but I do remember when I bought the copy. So it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And also the and also the live shows. I mean, that's important. You'll remember being at those live shows.
Yeah. And I think that since it is such a memorable experience for so many people, it's really important to try to connect in as many different ways as possible. So I think that while the audio performance should be almost identical. The performance itself at every single show has its own character and its own, level of interaction, and just each different location kind of makes each show unique.
Right. Let me ask you this question really quick. I know we got to get going here soon, but you mentioned you want things to kind of line up as much as possible what they sound when you hear it on the radio. But in reality, sometimes that's not totally true. I know today's industry has done a lot of backtracks in that, and sometimes there's been some arguments about, it's piped in music and all this stuff. But then again, it's still creating. Correct? We're still creating something new. I guess, what's your feelings about that?
I think that you should do as much live and raw performance as you possibly can. And then there are some instances where background vocals that you don't even really hear, you might put those through very quietly. Obviously, we don't have a synth player, so I would like to in the future, but at this point in time, it doesn't make sense for us to have a synth player. So there are some fake drums, obviously they're not supposed to sound like real drums, but
right.
Kind of distant sounding things or synth. So those are put through, but the real core of the song, drums, bass, guitar, vocals, that's just, the band performing on stage as real as it gets.
Absolutely. And speaking of live, have you done some live shows recently? And what's the future look for 2023 when it comes to live music?
So we just announced that we're going to be on the festival in Daytona around the racetrack.
Oh, yeah.
Rockville. Welcome to Rockville.
Yep.
And Incarceration. So we'll be playing both of those festivals, and we actually have more to announce, but I can't say what those are just yet.
Yeah.
And we're in talks finalizing a couple of touring opportunities as well. But I can't say what those are just yet either.
Well, you're the best.
So,
you're the best guy to talk about this stuff, Rex, because you can't remember anything anyway. So it works out good, right?
No way, that's different. That's different. We have the two festivals that are announced, and then these other things. I do know what they are, but I can't elaborate on some of them.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. Come on.
Yeah.
You're like one of my one of my kids, so I can do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm assuming you guys love being out live. What's it like being at a live show for you guys?
I like to think that we do a pretty good job of getting everybody immersed in the experience. So what I mean by that is I feel like people are always kind of plagued by intrusive thoughts and other things that are always on their mind. And I think one of the things that we seek to do is to be so captivating that everybody's just in that one place at that time together, and it's a very collective experience. So I think that there's obviously a lot of ways that you can try to capture that level of attention. I think that's kind of one of the main things that we aspire to do when we play.
Well, I tell you what, I thought we'd go for about 10 minutes or so, and here we're sitting already at 20 minutes, so I know we got to wrap things up as we've got things going on, and you've got things going on too, but let's get one more, I guess. Is there any last things that you'd like to say in that? And, of course, we want to know where you can get your music and all the information about Uncured.
Yeah, so keep up with us on social media. We have Instagram, Facebook, obviously Spotify. We have a website as well, uncuredband.com. And basically, I'd like to say to all the fans, thank you so much for everybody that's been supporting us, that's been listening to us, that's going to come see us at a show. And thank you very much to Jay-Z and The Dark for spinning Let's Break Out.
Awesome. And speaking of that, let's play it right now. Are you cool with that?
That sounds fantastic.
Hey, thanks so much for joining me, Rex, and good luck on all the tours and that in 2023.
Thank you very much.
Once again, that is Rex Cox. He's the lead singer of the band Uncured. Their latest song is called Let's Break Out. You're hearing it right now. It's on The Dark. It's on 94 Rocks.